It's time to read, rewrite, or burn. Hello everyone, welcome back to A Fictional Escapist. My name is Kris, and today's video is the Read, Rewrite, and Burn Challenge, or tag, that goes around every year or so. I did this one for my 2022 reads, and I thought it was quite fun. I read another 90 plus books in 2023, so I thought we would do it again. As a quick little video, we'll do, let's say, 5 rounds of Read, Rewrite, and Burn. So the idea of this challenge is to basically choose 3 books at random. I've got a random number generator and an Excel sheet with all the reads that I did during the year. So I'll pick 3 and then I'll choose 1 to read, rewrite, and burn. So that is the entire premise of this tag, and hopefully there are some hard decisions to be made in here. Before we jump into the video today, make sure you check the description box down below for links to my social media and Discord should you want to come along for the ride. So we'll do 5 rounds. The first round is, the books are number 28, which is Dead House Gates by Steven Erikson. Number 20, we're staying in the second, oh no, number 20 is Gardens of the Moon by Steven Erikson. If you give me another Malazan book. And the third one is number 83, which is Singularity Dawn. So, Dead House Gates, Gardens of the Moon, and Singularity Dawn. It already feels like a cheap shot for round number 1 because we've got 2 Malazan Book of the Fallens in there. I'm going to say probably burn Singularity Dawn. This was a sci-fi novella, which was a fun little take on the end of the world, but it was rather short and rather obscure. I liked it quite a bit when I read it, but it is unfortunately the obvious choice for the first round of this. Now, out of Gardens of the Moon and Dead House Gates, that is quite difficult. I really liked both of these books. I think for me personally, Gardens of the Moon wins out over Dead House Gates. So I will read Gardens of the Moon and I will rewrite Dead House Gates, but do not ask me how or why, because a lot of Malazan, I feel like Malazan just leaves my head when I read it, but as soon as I read the next book, pieces start coming together and I remember a whole bunch of stuff that has happened. So, I mean, just here for the Malazan vibes, but I would definitely read Gardens of the Moon again, and it's probably one that I'll reread more than the rest of the series, so I guess there's that. Alright, round 2. Let's see if we get all the Malazan books that I have read this year. Number 58 is A Dagger in the Dark. This was a novella by Tom Dumrell, which is set in the same world of Pillars of Peace with a side character. We've got number 49, Red Hail. This is by Jamie Killen, and this was a First Contact sci-fi novel. And number 80, which was Ruin by John Gwynne. All right, so I would read A Dagger in the Dark. I thought that A Dagger in the Dark was a really short, sharp novella. It was super fun. It really didn't stray outside of how long it needed to be. It was a perfect little story. I read it in a day and I had a blast with it, and it's something that I would go ahead and reread again. I would rewrite Ruin by John Gwynne. Now, that Ruin is my favorite of the Faithful and the Fallen books. Book 3 definitely stepped it up a notch and packed more of a punch for me personally, but there was still a lot of build up. I think all 4 books of the series have quite a lot of build up, and you expect that in at least a book 1 and maybe even a book 2 of, you know, a quartet or whatever the actual word for it is called. But I still felt like book 3 had a lot of build up happening to it, so I maybe would have made it a little bit more snappy. I don't know. That's just me. Don't come for me, Faithful and the Fallen fans. And which means I would burn Red Hail. Now, I actually really liked Red Hail. Red Hail is probably one of my favorite sci-fis that I read over the year, and it's a standalone, which means it's a nice story just in one, and it was about plagues, which were told over 2 timelines. So people had experienced a plague 60 years ago, and now the symptoms were coming up again in the present day. And I thought it was a lot of fun, but I did like the other 2 more. So that is round 2. Round 3. Number 55 is Stranger Back Home by E.L. Haynes. 85 is Wolf of the Plains by Con Iggulden. And 65, we're liking the fives here. The Spider and Her Demons. This was by Sydney Koo. I'll have the picture up anyway, so you can see it there. Burn is going to be Sydney Koo's book, Spider and Her Demons. This book wasn't a bad book. It was just a YA book, and it fell very firmly in YA. I'm not mad that I read this book, but it is definitely not something that was in my comfort zone and not something that I would repeat reading again. But it was a really fun, diverse read from a diverse author. So I appreciated it for what it was, but definitely not to my tastes. I would rewrite Stranger Back Home by E.L. Haynes. Now, this is a quirky, sort of fun fantasy. We follow Sparrow, and a whole bunch of stuff happens to Sparrow. I really like this book. I really enjoyed Stranger Back Home, and I'm looking forward to reading more about Sparrow when the next book in the series comes out. But it did have a little bit of repetition in terms of wording and descriptions of characters that I think could have been a little bit tighter. But overall, I had a really good time, which means I guess I'm reading Wolf of the Plains. Wolf of the Plains is an origin story for Genghis Khan. It sort of follows the childhood and the events that make this person want to be Genghis Khan. Oh, this video is featuring a fly. We'll call it Marty. I'm going to leave that in. I'm not going to edit it out. And you'll just see the fly here, and you'll be like, that's Marty, and it's Chris's friend. Not really. Ariana's probably going to eat it soon. Anyway, that was round 3. Let's move on to round 4. These are going really fast, so I'll try and make it like a 10-minute video, so if we have an extra round, we will. Round 4, 30. 30 is The Fall by Ryan Cahill. I have thoughts about The Fall. Number 8 is Vevan's Song by Jonathan Nees Myers. And 36, Age of Assassins by R.J. Barker. All right. I would reread Vevan's Song. Vevan's Song is one of those books that you close the page and you keep thinking about it. And I think it would offer so much on reread that it's definitely worth reading twice. I read this one as an ARC. I now have a physical copy, and I would like to reread it sometime in the future, maybe before book 2 comes out. It was something a little bit different. It's a fantasy novel set in a dystopian world, and it's very character-driven, dealing on the thematics of grief and how we cope with grief. And I thought it was really well done, which leaves us with Age of Assassins and The Fall. I'm sorry, Ryan Cahill fans. I am going to rewrite Age of Assassins and burn The Fall. So Age of Assassins, I actually quite enjoyed both of them, to be honest. But The Fall, I think I need to reread it because I don't know if I'm seeing what the rest of the world is seeing and what they're claiming to be a fantastic story. I liked the writing. I really did. I liked the premise and I liked the story of The Fall. But it really didn't paint anything outside the box for me. And I think I just looked for something that differentiates a story to feel like an author's voice. That being said, I've not read anything else by Ryan Cahill, and I will be going on to The Bound and the Broken. So I may just need more Ryan Cahill to really feel that fresh voice. I know that his stories sit very firmly in classic fantasy and sit very firmly within fantasy tropes. And if you like what you like, that's absolutely fine. I do like a lot of those fantasy tropes, but I haven't heard the author's voice yet through The Fall. So maybe it's a me thing, and I just need to read the next book to gain a sense of the author, because it's hard to get that in 130 pages or so. Rewriting Age of Assassins, I really don't think there was too much wrong with Age of Assassins, to be honest, but I think it was a debut, and there are some parts that read as a debut. So repetitive language and things like that, but there's really not a whole lot for me to comment on there. Round 5. I went on for too long. The video's already 10 minutes. We'll do another 2 rounds. So round 5. Number 90. Oh, I read really good books towards the end of the year. Don't give me all high numbers. Renier by Carl Forshaw. Number 13, Dragons of Autumn Twilight by Tracy Weiss and Margaret Hickman. Have I got the last names mixed up? There's a picture on the screen anyway. And 47, Phantom and Rook. This is by Alina Isaacs, who is a pen name for Noah Hawthorne. I would rewrite Renier. I would reread Dragons of Autumn Twilight, and I would burn Phantom and Rook. That was hard, because Phantom and Rook is not my normal type of story. It is very much a romance story. It's a male-male romance, very queer-normative world. I appreciated the story a lot for what it was. There was some repetition and there was some pining in there, which is, again, not to my personal taste, which is why it's sitting in the burn pile. But I really appreciated that book, and the audio was excellent for it. In terms of rereading Dragons of Autumn Twilight, I've reread this twice now, so this year was my second time through. It's such a classic fantasy tale, D&D tale. It hasn't aged overly well, in my opinion, in terms of the language that's being used. It does feel very classic fantasy, but there is something so comforting about these books. The first 3 books in the Dragonlance series, Chronicles, I don't know, whatever they're called. Renier, I thought was very good, very solid debut. I really enjoyed my time with it. In terms of rewriting it, I just felt some of the plot points which sort of promised to be more prominent in further stories, the way they were introduced was sometimes a little bit jarring, and you sort of had to like re-trigger your brain. That's also an authorial choice where they don't really want to spoon feed you too much, and that's absolutely fine. But I found some of those elements to be just a little bit jarring, but the book was excellent overall. And we'll do a bonus round. We'll do a bonus round 6 to finish off the video, to try and keep it somewhat short. We have 33. You're really enjoying the 30s today. This is On the Winds of Caesars by T.A. Bruno, the second book in the Song of Kamaria series. Number 50, The Nameless Restaurant by Tao Wong. Oh, I really love that novella. And 66, Echoes of the Storm by Cam Sinclair. That's hard. I would reread The Nameless Restaurant. It was so charming, and one sitting, or one serving, if you will, where it's all about passion and love for food, but it was very cleverly done in that it was written by Tao Wong, who has a lot of series in the lit RPG realm, and it threw little Easter eggs to some of these series. I thought it was super clever while having a complete story within, again, 120 to 130 pages, and it was just so well done. I loved it very, very much, which is why I got the reread here. Rewrite, I guess, would be Echoes of the Storm. This is a dark fantasy series, probably a grim dark fantasy series if we're splitting hairs on subgenres there, and it is wild. It is so wild. It is so unapologetic, and the only reason I would rewrite it is because I want more of certain characters. I really loved the characters that we got to explore in the second book, but I really wanted one more from one in particular, and I can't sort of name names because I don't want to give spoilers away, which means On the Winds of Caesars is going in the bin. I don't mean to burn all of the sci-fi books that I've read, because I enjoyed On the Winds of Caesars as well, but I really feel like it took 70% of the book for the plot to really start to happen. The first 70% was very much this mystery. People from the first book go missing in the second book, and then it's about finding them. And there's no sort of new information that comes to light really until the last sort of 30%. But again, T.A. Bruno knows how to finish a book. Excellent finish, and I'm looking forward to continuing the series. So that was the Read, Rewrite, Burn Challenge for 2023. I hope to see some of these come out this year because I just love watching them and seeing people deliberate on the decisions from the books they read. For all the books that I burnt, you know, not literally, but speakingly, I apologize. I did genuinely enjoy all the books that I read this year. This is why I don't do disappointing books lists because I know my reading taste now, and I'm also a reviewer. So if maybe a review copy doesn't really sit with me all that well, I'm still going to read the whole thing and be positive about it while being critical. So like I don't hate anything or dislike anything. Anyway, went on a tangent there. That was a challenge. If you like the content, give it one of those. If you want to see more of it, click subscribe at your will, and I will catch you in the next video. Ciao.